Christmas greetings from Hopalong Hollow. This is Jerry, and today we are a little bit upside down because it's been a rather upside down week. Normally I end my videos with tea and a snack or a lunch or a meal. This time I'm starting the video with tea and gingerbread cookies because it's the end of the day and I'm ready to sit down and just relax. Today's tea was actually a gift from one of my subscribers, and I thank you so very much. You know I love Harney & Sons. This is called Holiday Heritage, and it's a classic holiday tea with citrus, cinnamon, and a dash of nostalgia, and it truly is good. Thank you so much, Christine, for sending that to me. I really appreciate it. And you know I'll drink all of it. It's very, very good. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about early American Christmases. Homemade Christmases is what they were. Before the 1870s, you could not purchase baubles and bangles and all sorts of goodies for your Christmas tree. It was unheard of. Everything was handmade. Christmas tree in America dates to about 1747, and that was in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It was really the Germans in America that made Christmas such a holiday as it is today. They were very, very into Christmas. They had so many festivities and so many cultural traditions that they brought with them from the old country. But in New England, they didn't celebrate Christmas at all. In fact, the Pilgrims spent their first Christmas splitting logs, and many of the areas of the country followed bleakly in suit. In Indiana, Christmas wasn't even officially recognized until 1875. The first president to put a Christmas tree in the White House was Franklin Pierce in 1856. But even by 1900, only one American family in 5 put up a tree. But once they started putting up trees and the idea caught on, it grew by leaps and bounds. Last year I did quite an in-depth study of the Christmas tree in my Victorian Christmas tree video, so we're not going to go into that again. But I would say that what we're trying to do in this video is recreate a tree that would have been popular or done probably between 1890 and 1930. Using what was on hand, that is what the tree trimmer did. They took whatever it was that they had and they made a beautiful, beautiful ornament, a tradition, and that is one of the things Christmas is about. It's about tradition. It's about family. It's about creating something beautiful, because actually a Christmas tree is sort of an expression, an artistic expression of who. Trimming the tree had to use whatever was at hand, and paper was often at hand. Paper was something that was used often to embellish a Christmas tree. So we're talking about paper chains or cut paper such as shed and schnitt. And we're also talking about folded paper. Origin of the paper stars. The tradition brought to America by early immigrants would have been from the Swedish, the Swiss, and the Germans. So let's make some paper stars. Another simple embellishment for our early American Christmas tree are going to be folded paper stars. Now these paper stars were introduced about 140 years ago through area newspapers, which gave the directions on how to make these. They even included strips of paper that you could purchase in little packages if you wished, or you could do as I've done and use the paper that you have on hand. So you could use colored paper, you could use brown paper sacks. This is just parchment paper, art parchment paper, not the kind you bake with, but parchment paper. I like it because it's slick, it's very strong to work with, and these are actually rather addicting to make once you get the hang of it. It seems a little complicated at first, but after a while it's pretty easy and you can make them in any size. Make these, which is about once every 5 years. I have to go through the directions and learn how to do it all over again because I get so confused and these aren't very good directions. But anyway, if you want to make a 3-inch star, which is a really nice size, you're going to want to cut 4 strips of paper, 17 inches long by 1/2 inch. But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go a little bit wider with a 3/4 inch strip of paper, about 24 inches long, just to show you step by step how to do this. Again, you're folding take your 4 strips of paper and cut them into a nice sharp point. You'll see why this is important as we get moving along. And then fold them all in half, like so. Starting with our 4 pieces of folded paper. Okay, we're going to make a basket weave by looping these papers. Like so. The last piece. It's going to go right through here. Okay, and then we're going to tighten it up, like so. Let me show you that again. Okay. Folded paper. We're going to make a basket. When they're this long, they're a little bit difficult to work with. Right through the middle. Okay, and we're going to tighten that up. Now we're just going to flip it over. I'm going to do the same thing on the back. We're going to make another basket. Starting in your upper left, you're going to take the top strip and you're just going to fold it over. You're going to move clockwise, and you're going to do this with every top strip, folding it down and over, turning it clockwise, the far left strip, turning it down and over, clockwise, turning it down and under, and now on your last strip, you're going to take it and you're going to slide it through like this. Now you have a pretty secure locking basket weave, which isn't going to go anywhere. That's the hardest part. The rest of it is so easy. Do that, and we're going to do that again. Okay. Okay, here we are with our first basket weave. Our upper left strip, top strip, just fold it over. Move clockwise. Take your top strip, upper left-hand corner, fold it over. Once again, top left-hand strip, fold it over. Top left-hand strip, this is your 4th one, and now this time you can lock it in place by sliding it underneath this piece. Now you're completely locked in place. Now this is the fun part. Starting with your right-hand strip up here on the top, just where we stopped. That's where we put our locking strip in. Now we have our right-hand strip at the top, and we're going to fold it under, make a point. Fold it over, make another point. Fold it all the way over, there's a point, and lock it in place by sliding it right through the top, like that. Turning clockwise once again. I'm going to take our right-hand strip, I'm going to fold it under, fold it over, fold them together, making a point, Kind of bend it back like this. You can see now why you need these pointed pieces. Flip that out of the way and slide it right through. Okay, turn it again. Here's your top piece. You can move these little floppy pieces, just move them out of the way. Okay, fold it under. Fold it over. You've got a point. Fold them together. Like that. Kind of bend it down so you can maneuver it and slide it right through like that. There. Now. Isn't that easy? Okay, move that floppy piece out of the way. I'm going to fold it under. We're going to fold it over. Fold it together. Whoops. Fold it together. Sorry about that. Fold it together. Get the floppy piece out of the way. And you're going to have lots of floppy pieces. And slide it right through. See? There it goes. Okay, now you've got 4 points. Now we're going to flip it over. Leave those short pieces like this. We're going to flip it over. We're going to do the same thing on the remaining pieces. So here we are. Fold it under. Fold it over. Fold it together. Flip it back. And slide it right through. Turn it. Fold over. Fold under. Fold over. Fold together. Flip back. Move away the floppy paper. And slide it through. You're just going to keep doing it. Fold under, fold over, fold together, and lock it in place. When you're done, you'll have an 8-pointed star. So we have one more, or do we? Yep, we have one more. Here it is. See how easy this is? Once you get the hang of it, it really is kind of fun. Okay, and fold it over and fold it together. Flip it back and lock it in place. Okay, now you've got 4 points and a lot of floppy paper. There you are. So, with our floppy paper, let's see, where shall we start? Now we're going to take our star and just hold it and look at it for a minute and say, wow, I'm so proud of myself for doing that. Now we've got this, we're going to start here on the bottom right, and we're going to take this piece. Now watch carefully. I'm going to curl it around like this, twist it, and I'm going to slide it right through that piece right there, and it's going to come out the end of this star tip. You might not get that at first. Just watch. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to take that paper, floppy paper. I'm going to twist it around, kind of flip it like this, and it's going to come right out that star end. Same thing here. Take it, flip it around, and it slides right through. This is why I like parchment paper. It's very slippery and great. And one more. more. Take it, flip it around. And there you have. You can tighten it up a little bit. You're going to cut these little ends off when you finish, but don't do that yet. You're going to flip your star over, and you're going to do the same thing over here. There. As soon as you find the one that's sticking out the most, lower right-hand side, take it, flip it over, slide it through the other end of your other tip of the star. Okay. Same thing here. Flip it around. Oops. Slide it through. I hope this isn't too complicated. Very good. And one more. Now, when you're flipping it around, flip it over your finger like this. Not underneath. Although you could do it that way. That might be pretty interesting. Actually, you could do it both ways and you get a different effect. We'll try the next one with a different effect. Anyway, just slip it around your finger like so. Twist it. And slide it through. There we go. One more. Isn't that... it's fun, isn't it? See, if you start going and making these, and after a while, they really are rather addictive and fun to make. There. Now, all we're going to do is take our scissors and cut off each. These scissors are way too short. Get some bigger ones. And these scissors are way too big. Okay, so very carefully pull it pretty tight and then start cutting off these extra bits. And so this would be about the 3-inch. This is about a 3-inch star. Maybe this, yeah, I guess it is. I like to make very tiny ones though. You know, if you get pretty good at this, you could make them out of quilling paper for a miniature tree and have the sweetest little folded stars you can imagine. But if you've got a great big tree that you're going to try to be covering, the larger pieces are the best, and you will have to measure paper accordingly. All right, so there you have it. A folded paper star, and a very indicative of an early American Christmas tree decoration. Made a fairly tiny one, and I am ready to start flipping the floppy papers. This time I think I'm going to twist it the opposite way and see what kind of effect we can get. Actually, I think I like that better. Okay. So I guess you can flip the paper either way. I hope you're seeing here what I'm doing. And I really like the little ones. But can you imagine them even smaller than this? For the little Hopalong Hollow folk on their tree? Oh, I'm going to have to make them some. Actually, I think I do have the same decoration there. I'm going to flip it over and do the very same. I recorded that last clip, but here's the tiny one. Ready to go, ready to be hung with a string or a cord, whatever you wish. You can do these out of colored paper, you can do these out of brown paper. It depends on what kind of effect you're trying to get on a tree. If you want a really more of a real primitive pioneer style tree or more of a early colonial tree, I would stay a little more simple. That's what I would say. I would stay a little more simple. That's what I'm trying to achieve here with this tree. But you could also use the gilded paper or the foiled paper as well. You can see that I got two different effects on these stars. This one I actually like the best because they really are pointing out like that, whereas this one is a little more subdued. So this is from twisting the paper. Those last final floppy pieces, twisting those papers around a little in a different direction. Just experiment with it. It's really fun, but I actually do like these a lot better. I think they're a lot more interesting. Woolen thread, a little bit of thin twine, or some crochet thread. You can hang these to dangle from the limbs of your wonderful old-fashioned Christmas tree. Paper stars. Now, we want to add a little fruit, just as they would have done back in the old times. So we're just using what we have here with cranberries, oranges, dried limes. Limes would have been a very unusual thing for a pioneer family to hang on a tree. They would not have had limes, and oranges would have been a scarcity. But in some places of the country, Florida and California, for example, oranges would have been very, very popular, and lemons, any kind of citrus on a tree. In fact, nuts of any kind, and anything gathered from the woods, and that would include pine cones or walnuts, black walnuts, chestnuts, anything that you could find. Dried weeds, dried flowers from the garden, even vegetables and fruits were hung from Christmas trees, including potatoes. Here I have just a handful of little quilted hearts made from an old beat-up crazy quilt. Oh my goodness, I bet I made these 25, 30 years ago. And those are just something to put on this tree that would be very in keeping with it. And also these rusty old sleigh bells that I have that pretty much wore off the leather strap that they were on. And I'm just dangling them with some calico. Now I wanted to make some wheat weavings with these to hang on the trees as well. Unfortunately, time has really gotten away from me. In fact, today is the 20th of December, and I am just now getting this tree up. So, it's been such a busy time for me. I can't even believe where the time has gone. Now, as if it weren't enough that the tree was laden with all kinds of nuts and fruits, if possible and whenever possible, raisins, cranberries, orange slices, nuts, walnuts, acorns, whatever could be found. But the most impressive and the most fun and the most delicious thing that was put on the old-fashioned Christmas tree were homemade cookies. And it wasn't just cookies that went on the tree from the housewife's kitchen. Big, thick gingerbread men, tarts, anise cakes, all of those went right on the tree. Taking the tree down was just as much fun as putting it up. So today we're going to take a recipe, an old Moravian recipe from this wonderful old book I have. And this is a Moravian Ginger cookie, requiring an awful lot of flour, cloves, cinnamon, and ginger, which is going to be wonderful, and molasses, which is what makes them nice and crisp. These are going to be able to be served on the table, but also hung on the tree. The recipe, we're going to start out with 8 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon ground cloves, 1 tablespoon ground cinnamon, and 1½ teaspoons of ground ginger. Mix together your spices with your 8 cups of flour. We want ½ teaspoon of baking soda dissolved in 1 teaspoon of cider vinegar, cups of unsulfured molasses, and 2 cups of dark corn syrup. Oh my goodness. I think this is too sweet for me. But they are for the tree, and the donkeys will eat them if we don't like them afterwards. Now we're going to mix the cider in there. The cider and the baking soda. Now we are going to cut in 2 cups of butter or lard using the pastry blender. Mix this in until it's a crumbly mixture. And that takes a while because there's a lot of flour in there. Lastly, you're going to mix your molasses and your corn syrup mixtures and blend it well. Yes, this mixing is not for the faint of heart or the weak of arm. You have to have a really tough spoon to get this stuff blended in. It is quite thick. So after I mixed the dough together, I separated it into balls about the size of a baseball, and I ended up with 8 baseballs. So it's really sticky, stiff dough even after it's cooled, and that's why I'm wearing these gloves, because it just sticks to my fingers. The first cookie cutters were generally handmade affairs, and they were made with tin, metal, soldered onto a little back with a handle like this. This is a really old cookie cutter I've had for a long, long time. Pretty appropriate for Hopalong Hollow, being as it's a goose. And this one, we have a little dog. These are a little more recent. Gingerbread, of course, and a tree. But many of us remember these little tins. If you look in your grandmother's drawer, kitchen drawer, or your mother's kitchen drawer, you're going to find these little aluminum. Oh, they must have sold these by the millions. These are the kind that we had. And these still do the job perfectly well, from every kind of shape and size that you can think of. And that's what they had back in the early American days as well. Now, back then, they didn't turn out cookies by the dozens. The housewife made basketfuls of cookies, just loads and loads and loads of cookies for the holidays. And generally, the cookie cutters didn't come out until Christmas time. Everybody has a gingerbread recipe, and I mean, one of the first things I ever made was, when I baked, was a gingerbread man recipe from my mother's Betty Crocker cookbook. And it was a cookbook from 1949, I believe. I still have it. Certain foods, it seems that we only eat at one time of the year, or one season. And one of those in this house is gingerbread. Don't ever make it other than at Christmas or late fall for Thanksgiving. But that's the thing about it. It's all about traditions, customs. That's so much of what this season is about. Antique cookie cutters are really doing a good job, I think. Well, that recipe made a lot of cookies. They're not pretty cookies, but they certainly are very early American, rather primitive looking cookies. Something you might find at Little House on the Prairie. I like them though. Now, obviously, the thinner you roll the dough and the longer you bake the cookie. These I baked for about 14 minutes, and they're crispy, and they were thinner dough. This dough was rolled a little more thickly at 12 minutes cooking time, and they're moist. The taste is good. I like the cookie. I think I would add more cloves and cinnamon if I were ever to make this recipe again. I would say that this is a very beautiful tree. A completely handmade, early American style Christmas tree. Would have been happy in a log house or a humble little clapboard out on the prairie, or even a colonial living room. It's very pretty. I think I like it just as much as the Victorian tree that we did last year, and that was full of ornate Victorian and glass baubles and bangles and all kinds of gorgeous antique ornaments. But this, because of its natural beauty, I think sparkles just as brightly. Now, of course, they would not have had real lights on their trees, but they may have used candles, if only for a very brief time. I decided, since I couldn't weave the wheat, didn't have time, to just stick the wheat right into the tree, and I think it worked out beautifully. And if I'd had more time, I probably would have used a lot more of Nature's Bounty. But I think this is just good enough. And at the very top is a tin star. I don't know. You can see it. Yeah. A hammered tin star. What a beauty. What a pretty tree. I hope you'll try these paper stars. So in the last segment of this video, we're going to talk about the most important part of Christmas. Decorating trees, traditional things are really fun to do. Beautiful, it's unique, it's great to have tradition, it's great to have cultural things that we can all relate to. Gift giving, goodwill towards your fellow man, and love towards your family, and all creatures great and small. But let's move on and talk about the greatest Christmas gift of all. Now that we've done some baking, we've decorated a tree, it's time to look at the real heart of the matter of Christmas, and that's the birth of Christ. Does it not boggle the mind that the creator of the universe came down to this earth and was born in a little stable, dirty little stable actually, in a very small town of Bethlehem, amongst the beasts of the field? Or, as the Bible says, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. The Nativity story. Let's talk a little bit about the nativity scenes that we see today. The first ever recorded nativity scene was created by St. Francis of Assisi. He was concerned that the meaning of Christmas was becoming lost because of the rituals and revelries and all the secular traditions. And he wanted to remind the people of what Christmas was truly about. The St. Francis nativity was carved into stone in Greccio, Italy, as was the manger. And the figures inside the stone stable were humans and animals. So it was an actual living nativity. In the 1300s, life-size nativity sets appeared in churches all over Italy. And generally they were made of terracotta. From that time on, small nativity sets began to appear all over the world in the homes of Catholics and Protestants alike. They appeared in the homes of the wealthy as well as the poor, because artisans and folk artists could fashion them out of wax, wood, clay, and terracotta. This tradition spread throughout the world into nearly every Christian country, with each area adopting its own influences from their own culture and their own style. These nativity sets were known by different names, such as a crèche, or a manger scene, or a puch. Despite our modern rendition of a stable in which everything is rather beautiful and perfect and charming, at that time in Bethlehem, a stable would have been carved into the rock, and the feeding troughs, known as the mangers, would have been carved right into the stone. And so Jesus actually would have been laid into a stone feeding trough or a stone manger, and this would have actually been a cave. This was not the atmosphere the Jews expected as the birthplace of their long-awaited Messiah. Another telling thing about the story of Jesus Christ's birth is the fact that the angels came to the shepherds first. The shepherds were the first to know of Jesus' birth. And isn't that amazing? The shepherds were the lowest of the low in society. And the flocks that they were probably tending, the flocks of sheep, were probably sacrificial lambs which would have been later used in the temple. In Luke 2:9 we read, "An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone round them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, 'Do not be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. Today, in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is Christ, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You'll find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger.'" Suddenly a great company of the heavenly host appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace and goodwill toward men." Can you imagine that sound? There's also great significance in the fact that Jesus was wrapped in swaddling clothes or linens, cloths, laying in a stone manger in a borrowed stone stable. And when Christ was crucified and buried, he was also wrapped in cloths, laying on a stone slab in a borrowed stone tomb. Think about that. Think about that as a Christian, how incredible that is. Of course, if you're a Christian, you know that is not the end of the story. Next time you set up your nativity set, dwell a little on the significance of the manger, the animals, the figures, the shepherds, the angels, everything. And of course, Jesus Christ. I want to leave you with Christmas greetings, Christmas wishes, and I also want to leave you with a little poem that I absolutely love. I don't know who wrote it, but I love the fact that all the animals were here in the manger, all these farm animals. "The animals gave him a manger bed, gathering near as Christ was born. And as they smiled and blessed his love, the animals spoke on Christmas morn. And now on every Christmas Eve a wondrous miracle takes place, and the animals speak among themselves of the love that shone on Jesus' face." Merry Christmas to you all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you very possibly on Christmas Eve in a very short video. Until then, bye-bye, and thank you so much for visiting me this year on my channel.